going on, guys? Welcome to Pam Unfiltered, where we spill the hottest celeb tea, recap reality TV chaos, and get real about trending news. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Pam Unfiltered. So, Love is Blind UK season 2 has finally been released. We have been waiting for this season, I feel like over a year now. But anyway, they put out 4 episodes this past Wednesday. We all know they are the pod episodes. Everybody's getting to know one another. We're getting to know the new singles and possible couples. So far, so good. FYI, we will be uploading, or I should say I don't know why I keep saying we when I do these videos, but I will be uploading episodically just for editing purposes and making sure that I get these videos out there as fast as possible and I'm not backed up. But anyway, let's get started with episode 1. So we first meet Ashley. She's 30 years old and she is a cabin crew member. You guys, when I heard that, I was like, what position is that? It's so broad. But in fact, when I Googled it, she is a flight attendant, or what we call flight attendant. Call me ignorant, call me an American, but I always thought that title was universal. Ashley comes on Love is Blind because she's ready to get married. You know, her previous relationship, she said they didn't work out because she is a cabin crew member. But now she's at a certain age, she's ready for love. She doesn't say she's ready for a new position as far as her work, but she's just really ready to put her all into a new relationship, right? We get her meeting Billy. Now, Billy is 35 years old and he's an army physical trainer and he's from Northern Ireland. They hit it off well. They have a few things in common. You know, he's in the military, but in fact, she did military cadets when she was younger until she aged out. They're also really big on family and they both have dogs. As they're talking, Ashley does tell Billy her occupation, and you can see the little, just it's so subtle, you guys. There's a little bit of worry in his face when she tells him that he's a cabin crew member. And of course, they're going to talk about this later on in the episode, as we will. But yes, he has a slight problem with her occupation. Now, they go into their past relationships. You know, Ashley does say that her last relationship was really, really toxic, and she's been single, I believe, for 5 years. Billy admits to her that his previous relationship, he was indeed married, but they just didn't work out at all. All right, so we meet Sophie, who is 28 years old, and she's a senior commercial manager. Y'all, I can tell y'all right now, Sophie rubs me the wrong way. I do not like her attitude. I don't know if it's like bluntness or she's just a bitch. I'm not too sure. I'm really trying to just see it through when it comes to her, but she just rubs me the wrong way, right? So we meet her in the quarters and she's talking to another single named Yolanda, and she's playing with her hair, and she asks Yolanda, how does she like her hair? Does she like it like this? Or she likes it like that? And Yolanda gives her generic answer, trying to be nice. And you know, she says, however you like it. And then she snaps at this girl. She goes, I'm asking for your opinion. Right then and there, honey, just because it's me, I would have told her, I'm like, I honestly don't care what your hair looks like. Hence why I said, however you like it. And I would have got up and I would have walked away. There's something about her, y'all, that let me know if you're feeling it just like me. I'm just not here for her. So we get her in her confessional and she talks about, you know, herself, and she talks about her dating life. And she says every first date that she has, she treats as an interview. And this is where we get a montage of her pretty much treating how she meets the guys as interviews. But then we get her meeting Kieran. And Kieran is 28 years old and he's a gaming entrepreneur. They did hit it off really, really well, right? And they talk about family, and she tells him that she is the fifth of siblings, but she has 4 brothers. Now, when you tell a man that you have a lot of brothers, they get a little nervous. Now, Kieran didn't want to seem nervous, but he definitely was kind of nervous. But he says, oh my God, like, will your brothers beat me up? And she goes, only if you don't treat me well. And they laugh and everything like that. Then they go into, you know, the relationship questions, which I actually enjoy with this particular episode. A lot of them went straight to the point, and they was like, what's going on with your past relationships? You know, they really get into the questions. And that's important because this is such a fast-paced process you have to get those questions out right away, right? So they get into the relationship questions. Now she's the okay, so Sophie is the one that was in a relationship for 5 years. I'm trying to remember how many years Ashley, it might have been one. I'll let you guys know. I'll get a little annotation or whatever in the video. But she says that she's never been in love, right? And that she was in a relationship and it was for 5 years. And clearly, from what she's saying, she was just not really into this guy. And I think after a while, she just started to dislike him, which I can understand. And that has happened to me in my past relationships. So then Kieran says, I was in a 7-year relationship prior to the show, but he's been single for about a year and a half. She goes on and she lets him know right away that she does not let people in very easily. I don't know if that's going to be a problem for Kieran down the line or it might be a challenge. I'm not too sure. It depends on how far their conversation goes or how deep their conversations go. But I do like the banter between the two. They have a lot. So the perspective changes, and we are with Kieran. And he meets up with Megan, who is also 28, like him and Sophie, but she is a dance instructor. They don't say dance instructor, but that's pretty much what it is, right? Again, with the conversation, maybe it's just the way the editing is, but they go straight away into asking the real important questions, which is the relationships, right? So they talk about why they're single. We all know why he's single in his previous relationships. She says her previous relationships weren't very successful and they weren't long lasting because of her schedule. And then they start talking about family and children. And he asks her, does she want children? She says, absolutely. She would like one biological child, but then she will also like to adopt. This puts a light in Kieran's face. And he goes, like, I thought about that as well. That's really interesting. I would love to do that. And that's where they bond. Can I say this? Even though I do like the banter between Sophie and Kieran, there's something about Sophie that I feel like that banter is going to get a little old and it's going to turn into arguments, right? I like him more with Megan. There's just something sweet, honest, and just they can build on that love. Kieran and Sophie is not it, but we'll see who he's going to choose because obviously this is a triangle that Netflix wanted to show us. So then after their first date, we get Megan into the women's quarters and she's talking to some of the other young ladies, but Sophie is near. And Sophie overhears Megan talking about Kieran. And baby, Sophie is jealous right away. She says she doesn't like to share her men. She is not happy at all. Call me a hater, Sophie. I'm telling you, she's gonna be the one to get on my nerves, right? Sophie, did you forget what show you're on? You're on Love is Blind. Everybody's dating everybody here. Okay. So Kieran might have multiples, not just you and maybe Megan, but he might have someone else that he's connecting with. You just have to put yourself forward to make sure he's your number one or you're his number one. Okay, so now we meet Patrick, who is 33 years old, and he's a human design coach. You're wondering what that is? He's a life coach, you guys. From what I've seen in this episode and the other episodes, he likes to be different from everyone else. And I wholeheartedly believe he made up that job title. So after we get him talking to Yolanda Christine, he meets Anu. Anu is 29 years old and she is a singer. Now their conversation goes really well. They talk about why you want to get married now, which to me is such a stupid question. What do you mean why I want to get married now? I'm 33 years old. It's time to get in a relationship. I want a family. I want to do it before I turn 40. Again, a stupid question to ask, but she asked it, right? So they start to talk about religion because he talks a little bit more about spirituality, and it's clear as day that Anu is extremely religious. Like religion leads her day to day. She says that she wakes up and prays. She calls her family and prays, which is a lot, but to each his own. That's how she likes to live her life. You can see that Patrick is okay with it because he did grow up as a Christian Catholic, but you can tell that that is no longer him. He is more spiritual. So I really wonder how these two will match up and live their day-to-day life. Now we meet Sarova, who is 29 and she co-owns a medical company. When I first saw her name, I was just like, Sararova. And then I was like, no, take your time. And then I realized it was Sarova, which is a beautiful name. Y'all, FYI, I might butcher some people's names and I really don't mean to because I try to say it correctly. I don't want to be disrespectful to other people's culture and how you pronounce their names. I even do that in my 9 to 5 when I'm trying to pronounce like a lot of Latin names. I just get really, really nervous and I mispronounce it. So if you do see me mispronounce a name, I do apologize, right? So anyway, we meet Sarova. She grew up in the UK, but she is 100% Indian. She says how she only dated Indian boys, but she really wants to date an Indian Zac Efron. I don't know if that's code for she just want to try a white boy, but girl, it's 2025. If you want to date a white boy, go on ahead, go get you a white boy, and you live in the UK, please. Okay. But then we get her meeting Cal, and Cal is 32 years old and he is a gym owner. Cal is very, very, very handsome. It's so weird because his facial features, he looks like a white man, but he has olive complexion skin as a person of color, which is really interesting. Very good looking man. I can't stand his haircut. But anyway, they start off joking and they're having really great jokes. But then again, the relationship questions come up straight away. I'm not going to keep saying it, but I love it, right? So he says that he was in a previous relationship when he lived in Dubai, but he's been single for about a year. When he was in the relationship, or I should say before he was in a relationship with the girl, it was a situationship. When they finally got together, he noticed how the relationship started to quickly crash on her end. They touch base on her, but she doesn't really talk about her previous relationships. I don't know if I missed that, but I didn't hear her say anything at all. I don't know if it's going to come up later on um throughout the episodes, but yeah, she doesn't really talk too much or she doesn't go too much in depth about her previous relationship. But that conversation was very quick. They enjoyed each other's time and they hope to see one another again. Now we're on day 2. I have to say this, the dates in day 2, they showed us very briefly. They don't show us the in-depth conversations that everyone had. So we start off with Ashley and Billy, and clearly these two are smitten with one another. They have no interest in anyone else that's there trying to get to know one another. It's just Billy and it's Ashley. They start talking about tattoos. Can I say this? British men, you guys love to be covered in tattoos and you look good. I have to say this. I love a man who is fully covered in tattoos outside the face. Don't touch the face. Please don't touch the face. But Billy says that if he indeed gets married again, that he would love to put his wife's name on his body. But then they start talking about intimacy and how important is intimacy to one another. They both say intimacy is extremely important, you know, outside of trust and communication. Then we get Kieran and he is meeting up with Megan. And again, they're having a really good conversation, lots of laughs. But Kieran asks her, how can I give you butterflies? And they both agree giving each other butterflies is if you kiss on the neck and ear region and giving really good contact, which I like, but I am actually a forehead kind of girl. If a guy can give me a kiss on the forehead, y'all, I just know you're in love with me because that is a form of intimacy that to me that you really like someone. That's a very intimate thing to kiss on someone's forehead. So now we get Kieran on a date with Sophie, and he asks her the same question he asked Megan. How can I give you butterflies? When I tell you this girl laid up there and said passion, Kieran was not feeling her answer. He was just like, you need to elaborate a little bit more. Like, that's completely unacceptable. What can I do for you to make you feel like you make you feel butterflies? And she sticks to her guns and she says passion. When I tell you this woman is going to be very argumentative, she's very closed off. And I said before, they are going to argue a lot. I can see it. But we do get Sophie in her confessional, and she starts to like talk about herself and how she dealt with past relationships. And she says, when I'm with a guy, I don't give him my 100% all. There's always something that I hold back, right? Because if I do give them my whole entire heart or my whole entire being and it doesn't work out, I feel like the fool. But if I hold something back and it doesn't work out, I'll just say, ha ha ha, you don't know me at all. You didn't know me 100%. When I tell you this woman should not be on Love is Blind, she needs to seek therapy. That is what she needs to do. The fact that you're not comfortable enough to give someone your whole entirety is sad. It really is sad, because that one thing that you're holding back, they might actually love more than all the other stuff that they know. And if you're that afraid that someone is not going to like you for your complete self, he's not for you. And you can tell that, in the beginning. You can see if you can be 100% with someone. So if you don't feel like you can be 100% for that with that person, he's not it. Moving on to Sarova and Cal on their second date. So Cal asks Sarova, how do you feel about change? And she is not accepting to change at all. She says she really gets anxious. And he says, I can always just like, hold your hand and calm you down if you ever feel anxious. And later on in another date that we see with them, I understand why she doesn't like change and she does get anxious. Okay. So then they start talking about family. Cal goes into a conversation about his two brothers. At first, he kind of alludes that they're not alive anymore, but they are. He says, his first brother or his oldest brother was in the military, and then they had got news that he got shot, but he was alive, and all is well. He's married and he has children, he's okay. But then he talks about his other brother, how his brother always had substance abuse issues. Okay. And then when Cal was in Dubai, his brother just randomly checked himself into rehab and he got sober, met the love of his life, and now they have a family. And he's so proud of his brother because he honestly thought that his brother was never going to be sober, because he was so resistant to help prior to him doing it himself. He just always thought that this was going to be his brother's life. We're back with Ashley and Billy. Clearly, this episode is centered around Ashley and Billy. It looks like they will be the first two to be engaged, despite Billy's resistant to Ashley's or reservations to Ashley's occupation. I think he can look past that. He knows he can work it out with her when it comes to it. And he's just going to continue on with the relationship with her. So we get them in the date and they start talking about family. Billy gets really emotional when he talks about his dad, because recently his dad has had a lot of like medical issues, and it's really hard to see him be like that. One thing about, I guess, us as adults at a certain age, I would say maybe late 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s, we realize that, or we realize that our parents are not invincible. When we're younger, our parents are, invincible. They're Superman, they're Wonder Woman, they're strong, nothing can happen to them, because they're in fact young like we are technically, right? But as we get older and we see them get older and see them get frail, it just comes to realization like, no, they're not. They're just human beings like the rest of us. And I think that's why Billy got really emotional. So then Ashley talks about her family in her past. And she says that her parents got divorced when she was 16. Because she was the eldest daughter, she had to step up and help her mother pay the bills. I don't know where her father was, where he couldn't. I don't know if UK does child support like we do here, I believe in the United States and in Canada. But in fact, if they do child support, where was her father? Why at 16 did she have to step up and help her mother? Where was his payment to her in spousal and in child support, where she could have took that money to help support them? That's a sad thing when an oldest child has to become an adult way too early than what she needed to be. But She said, because she had to be an adult early and throughout her life, that she wants a relationship where the man takes care of her. And I don't think when she says that, not in a gold diggish way, but she would like to be taken care of. Okay, she's been taking care of people since she was 16 years old. She's 30 years old. That's 14 years that she had to consider other people. She wants someone to consider her, and I wholeheartedly agree with it. But Billy goes and he asks Ashley, would you ever consider a job change? And she says, absolutely. But as of right now, I'm single. So being a cabin crew member is just perfect for me. I have no responsibilities, so I can go wherever I need to go. He understands the question, but clearly he still has a problem with that, right? And at this point in time, we don't understand why he has the problem. But then we go into his confessional, and he admits that he was in a previous relationship with someone who was a cabin crew member, and the relationship didn't work out. He doesn't say this, but I believe he's talking about his ex wife. I wholeheartedly believe, no, because he said his wife was in the military, I believe. So, no, maybe somebody prior to his wife. Um, was a cabin crew member. His corrections, you guys, his wife was actually in the military. But again, yeah, he's not too happy about her being the cabin crew member. But if they go into depth about their relationship, and in fact it does proceed into being engagement and marriage, maybe she will change it and have absolutely no problem with that. Now we're in the pods with Patrick and New for their second date, and they talk about cultures, right? Patrick says that he is Jamaican and Nigerian. And Anu says that she can imagine his household when he was a kid with a very carefree Jamaican parent versus the very strict Nigerian parent. And he tells her, you hit it on the nose. And she admits, like, she knows how that is because she's in fact Nigerian. And he tells her, I already knew you were Nigerian. And she's shocked. And she's like, how did you figure that out? And he's like, your name? Anu. He's Nigerian as well. You don't think he could recognize another Nigerian? You guys are talking. There's probably things, how you say things, your mannerisms, that he can tell that you're a Nigerian outside of your name, which is obviously a cultural name. So they go more into the childhood conversation. She says, my mother came here to the UK as an immigrant, but now she owns her own home. She works for the government, you know, and she's very proud of how her mother came about, and that her kids are all successful. They have very, very good jobs. But they also talk about going to school in Nigeria. Patrick says that year 7, he went to a school in Nigeria. And then Anu says her mother did schooling in Nigeria. And they talk about things like, oh, he had to fetch our own bathing water and stuff like that. And she's like, oh my God, that's the same thing that my mother had to do. So they bond on that as well. We're back with Cal and Sarova in the pods, and they talk about their childhood. Sarova says about 8 years ago, her parents divorced and how difficult it has been. And this is where I think she has a problem with change and where she gets anxious. Her parents are no longer together. Their dynamic that they had as a whole family completely changed. She said they used to love Christmas time and the holidays, but since they've been divorced, her and her siblings had to divide their time between both parents, which she feels really sad about. Cal talks about his childhood and is very similar to Sarova. Both their parents divorced the time they went into college, so about 18 years old, 18, 19 years old. He says that, my dad moved to Dubai where his mother stayed, right? But then he also lets us know that, his mother's English and his dad is Pakistani. And then Sarova says to him that I'm Indian. Obviously, Cal has no problem with Sarova being Indian. However, he has to ask Sarova, how do you feel about me being half Pakistani, and would your family accept? Because there is a conflict between India and Pakistan. She's curious to see how her family would react if they find out if indeed Cal and her do get engaged. But again, clearly it is not a problem for Cal because I think even though his father is from Pakistan, right? I think because his mother is English, that's how he grew up. All right, so the final scene we get is Billy and Ashley again. Ashley comes into the pod. She's so excited to talk about him. She says, "Listen, I think about you all the time, but baby, Billy's face is stern." And Billy says to her, "Listen, I have to be honest." And Ashley looks so puzzled because she's just like, "Is there something wrong?" And then the scene cuts. That was episode 1. Of course, episode 1 is never too crazy. We're all just getting to know one another. But trust me, the other episodes are going to be drama filled. Again, I don't necessarily think there's going to be huge drama between Billy and Ashley. I think they'll come to an understanding when it comes to her occupation. Where I think the issues is going to be really is that triangle between Kieran, Sophie, and Megan. I think Kieran's going to try to open up Sophie. She's going to be very hesitant and he's not going to feel it. There might be a slight argument between the two, but we'll see. Let's see if he'll choose her or if he chooses Megan. I hope he chooses Megan. I think she's a better match, but we'll discuss that in other episodes. Make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't, and I'll see you guys in episode 2.